So you want to know how to use a GPS, you have no idea what you're doing, you have no idea how to use a GPS, your flight instructor can use a GPS, you can't seem to understand it, you both are getting frustrated. This is the video that will solve all of the problems and the frustrations, and it will save you so much money when you know how to use a GPS, and then you can pass flight lessons. Okay, so everything that I'm about to tell you right now is completely made up, in that I don't know if these are the official terms that the company uses, but this is what I came up with to help teach people how the GPS works. If you're using a Garmin 650, a lot of this is, which is a touchscreen one, a lot of it is the same, or the smaller version of that. It's the same mechanic, same brain, just in a different body. So there's a couple of things that we need to break down first. There are chapters and there are subchapters. What I call chapters are the big four, the family of four. So we move left to right for this. That's NAV, Waypoint, AUX, and NRST. Those are all controlled by the big knob on the right, okay? And then if you want to navigate underneath those chapters, which I call subchapters, are controlled with the small knob on the right. So anytime you're on a big chapter page, you're using the big knob. If you want to navigate those big chapter subchapters, you use the small knob. Okay, next thing we have to talk about is if you push that push button on that right hand side, this is your mouse. Anytime you push that in, it is like you are selecting and deselecting thing. Well, it's not like you are, it's because you actually are. If this is highlighted, you need to deselect, push that knob in again to get it to not be highlighting anymore. If you try and change either chapters or subchapters with that knob highlighted, it is not going to work. It's simply just going to scroll to the next thing on the page. Okay, now we have flight plan. Flight plan lives in its own house. It is not connected to the big chapters. It is its own thing. It has its own button. You push that in once and then you push it out again to look at flight plan and be off of flight plan. On the left hand side, we have this other second push button. That's going to control anything to do with VLOC. So if you need to change a frequency, you're going to push that button and then it's going to highlight what you want to look at, and then you can use the bottom arrows to switch between whatever frequency you want in the active or standby. So now that we have some small mechanics down, we're going to go over how the entire thing is oriented. We're going to work our way left to right on the buttons on the bottom. If you press the CDI button, that's your course deviation indicator, that's going to change us from GPS to VLOC. And all that is doing is changing the source of what the GPS is going to provide the indications that you want. So if you're using the GPS, you need to be on GPS. If you're using a VOR, you should be on VLOC. That's a little bit of a blanket statement, but essentially that's what that's doing. That's where it's taking the nav information from. If you're not on the right nav source, well, you're not going to have the right information in the plane. Okay, now we're going to the OBS. That's your Omni Bearing Selector. This, you're going to use this and holds, but essentially you push it and the letters come up. That means it's active, and then you push it in again, and then it's not active anymore. Now we have messages. Messages pop up, you should open them. Messages gives you alerts about things. You can actually set custom alerts in the 430. I would encourage you to open your messages. Okay, now we're going on to flight plan. Flight plan is if you were to, like, for example, load an approach in the plane, the approach is going to be in your flight plan. Or if you are going from place to place and you want to manually enter a bunch of points in, you can do that too. Like I said, flight plan, it lives in its own house. Okay, now we have procedures. Procedures are if you're setting up approaches. Procedures, that is obviously an instrument thing. If you are a private pilot, you have no need to know what that button is for yet, but instrument people, you know what that button is for. We are going to the magical place of the direct button. The direct button. Many people misuse this button. It is the button of frustrations. If you select the direct button once, you're going to get a blank screen. You can use the knob on the right-hand side to manually enter in all of these points if you want them. If you use the big knob, it'll scroll down and you can, typically you really only need the first line, but if you wanted to, it's there. Now we are going to use the small knob. If we use the small knob, the first letter that's gonna come up is K, because that's for most airport identifiers. So it just does that automatically. Once you have that in, you can use the big knob to go to the right because the GPS knows what line you're on, and then you can use the small knob to enter in any other letters that you would want to get the name of an airport or the name of the waypoint or a VOR, whatever it is that you're trying to navigate to. Okay, so once we have in what we want to have entered in the direct page and we've manually entered that in, there are two buttons now that we need to hit in order for the GPS to actually take us there. This is where the magic happens. Okay, so we are going to select direct, and that's going to confirm what you have filled out at the top, and then it is going to highlight the activate button. We need to confirm that selection with the enter button. The enter button, all it does, I should have mentioned this before, but all this does is it confirms a selection. The direct button is a command. The enter button is confirmation. If you want the GPS to do something, you can't just hit enter. You would have to hit direct. You need to give it a command to do something. Okay, that highlight button is activated. We've hit activate, we've hit enter, and now the GPS, as long as that CDI button on the left is on GPS, should take us where we want to go, and you're on the right nav source if you have two nav sources, like GPS 1, GPS 2. Okay, I'm going to give you another example that's playing in the video, should be playing right now. Just some random airport, direct and enter. Okay, now notice once you press that button, the GPS takes us off of the direct page and it puts us on the nav page because it's smart, and it's going to give us options for how you want to view where you want to go in different formats. Let's break down the first chapter, the first big chapter, the nav chapter. That first page that is showing right now, it gives the CDI, right, of are you aligned with the course that you want to go to. Another important thing is the direct button gives you the way to get from point A, where you are right now, to where you want to go from the time that you entered it in the GPS. This is important because if you were to do a 180 and you were to start moving away from when you first initially hit the direct button, your course is going to change, meaning that it is going to give you a larger distance of, hey, you need to correct this much to the right until you are on track. If you change locations from when you first originally hit the direct button, all you need to do is hit the direct enter button again, and then you will get to where you need to go from when you put it in. So there's no need to correct all the way to the right or to the left if you change positions. Just hit direct again. You're following your original line. That should make sense. Okay, now on this first page, it gives you an indication of how much you are on course if you're to the left or to the right, of course, with the CDI. Gives you the name of direct to whatever you want to go to. It gives you the distance. This was just some random airport of 844 nautical miles, a direct track. Gives you, what else is important here, your ground speed and what you're actually tracking on the bottom. So the direct track is, hey, this is the direct track of point A to point B, and what you're tracking is what you're actually flying. Okay, and if there were to be time, that would be on the estimated time and route on the bottom. moving the small knob on the right because all we want to do is get information about our subchapters. We are on the second page of the NAV. Now, this is one of my favorite pages because it gives you what your airplane's orientation on the map. And you can actually change this. I'm going to go into this later in the video of if you want this to be oriented a different way, if you want track up, track north, track south, whatever. I don't remember all the options right now. It gives you different ways to orient that. It has the point that you put in on the top right, the direct track of where you want to go to, distance and ground speed. Same information as the first page, but now you have your airplane's orientation. So if you were in a plane that does not have some big display of your airplane's orientation, this is great for airspace and just being aware of where you are in situational awareness. Now we're moving the small knob to the right. Oh, I was going to show you something. So the range, if you are moving the small triangle on the left, you are getting closer, right? It's going down. You're getting closer to your point of what you want to see. The triangle on the right, you are getting farther away. So you just keep in mind, you want to press of where you want to go. So if you want to get closer, okay, we're going to press that down triangle. If we want to get farther away, we're going to press the up triangle, and that gives you different distances. I don't remember the nautical mile it goes to, but it is quite large if you wanted to get really close or really far away. For the instrument people, I highly suggest having this up in partial panel approaches. You're welcome. This is the third subchapter of the NAV. Now, this page is cool because it's kind of funny. All you need to do is press that knob and press our mouse one time. That is going to start highlighting right there on the top of the page. Once we've highlighted, and I'm just showing pressing it in and out for examples, now you can use the big knob and scroll down because these are all of the frequencies related to the airport that you entered in. Now, fun fact, keep scrolling. The first page of what you see is not all of the frequencies that you can get. You can actually get a ton of frequencies for approaches, some for the frequencies for the localizer, for the ILS. It's pretty cool. Some people don't know that you can actually scroll down. It's fun. I love blowing people's minds with the GPS. Now we are going to the fourth page of the NAV. This is your magnetic compass. If you didn't know that you had one of these here you go. Sometimes this might not be completely aligned with the mag compass in the plane. Makes sense. But just keep that in mind. You can use this for extra reference, and again, with those instrument guys, that might be of help to you. We're on the fifth page of the NAV, and to be honest, I do not use this page a lot. The ones we just went over, very highly used. This page, don't use this page too much. These are your satellites. I had to look up what these meant because, just to be honest, I didn't know. EPE is estimated position error, and DOP is dilution of precision. I am not an expert in this page, so I don't want to talk too much about it, but you have the strength of the satellite signals on the bottom, and you have the satellites on the top. Next page. Okay, so now we are on the last page of the NAV. Again, this is one page that I haven't used a lot, but if you wanted to set up a vertical profile, like for an approach or something like that, or if you were, let's say you were going to an airport, right, and you wanted to lose so many feet per minute, you could set up that profile on here of what your vertical speed is and where you're starting and how much you want to lose, so on and so forth. Again, this is not pertinent information for most people, but I'm just kind of showing how you could move it around. If you would like to get into this, show me how to use this page. I don't use it that much. Okay, so now we are on the second big chapter. This is the first subchapter of the Waypoint page. This first page gives you information about the thing that you put into the GPS. If you put in direct to an airport, on the direct page or the nearest page, we'll get there later, you are now saying to the GPS, hey, I want information about this airport that I've put in there. So if you go to the Waypoint page, it would automatically have that information in there. So first page of the Waypoint page, again, if you press that right mouse, right, our mouse in, you can scroll around, you can mess with that. Not too much to do on this page other than just look at the information provided. On the second page, you can actually see the diagram. So it's actually kind of funny when students are in the plane and let's say you forget your airport diagram, right? Well, it's right there. As long as your GPS database is valid, the information that it's giving you about the airport should also be valid. You can use this and actually you can change the runways as well. All you have to do is push that big button on the right. It's going to highlight the airport, and then you use the big knob on the right to scroll down. And then once you're there, you can probably guess by now, hey, we're going to use the small knob because we don't need to change any major section here. We just want more information about the thing that we're already on. And you can change that from the runways, and it'll give you different information about the length of the runway, and there's some extra stuff in there. So super great resource to have if for whatever reason you lost ForeFlight, was gone, and you don't have an airport diagram. Going on the third page of Waypoint, now we have a bunch of frequencies. Again, these frequencies can be in different places, just depending on where you wanted to find them. So on the third page of the Waypoint, again, we're scrolling all the way down. It gives you a bunch of information about that airport's frequencies. They are also, some of these are in different pages. Going to the next section, on the fourth page of Waypoint, it is giving you some information about an ILS approach there. Moving on to the fifth page, we give you information about if a departure, or this is just some more instrument stuff there. I don't think there is any for this airport. The seventh page, it is giving you information about an intersection that's close by. The GPS gives you so much information, extra information, an NDB. And if you wanted to manually change it, you could also manually change it, but that's not the area that I would go to do this. Typically everything with Waypoint, everything that you would need is in the front section of those subchapters. And on the last page of Waypoint, if you wanted to manually enter a user waypoint, you could name it and you can create your own waypoint in the GPS. We are on the third big chapter. We have AUX. I call this auxiliary in my head. If this isn't auxiliary, I'm sorry. But again, some of this I just put together myself. And the auxiliary, it gives you some cool information related to flight planning. So for private pilot people and well, really this is for everybody, but specifically private pilot, when you are doing diversions, I teach people how to use this page because it gives you a lot of the information that you actually need to figure out in a diversion. So for whatever reason, if you're trying to use your brain and your brain isn't working, if you know how to do it in the GPS, I'm talking about like some simple, fast math, you can navigate to what you want to find in the GPS. On the fuel planning page for the auxiliary, we are going to push that in, we're highlighting it, and then we are hitting enter. It is giving us what we put in the GPS. So it is our present position from when we originally put direct to a point, showing where we are going. It gives the fuel on board to the left, fuel flow, which you would manually have to change. Your airplane's 430 should have this information already in there, but if it doesn't, you can manually enter it. It gives you your ground speed on the right, and then moving down to the bottom, it actually shows you how much fuel you need. So you have required on the left. The LFOB, that one is less likely to guess what that is. That's leftover fuel on board. Then we have LRES to the right. That's leftover fuel reserve time. Then we have on the bottom left efficiency. So that's how many nautical miles per gallon. And then we have our range, and then we have our endurance. So I've picked something crazy far away. So all of these numbers are huge, right? But this is a complete breakdown to especially help you in diversions of how much fuel is it going to take, how long is it going to take us to get there, and it gives all that information in a nicely wrapped gift for you. Okay, and again, this should automatically be in the GPS, but if you needed to manually change something, you can. Then I'm going to get out of here. So to do that, we are deselecting. So just pushing the knob in once, and we are still highlighted. So we'll move that right knob to the big knob to the right, and then we'll hit enter, and we'll go into trip planning. So for trip planning, that is going to give us some similar information here. So it's point to point. So it's when you put in the GPS to the point that you're going to. It also gives you the departure time, and in tiny little letters you can see that's LCL, so that's local time. Then you have ground speed to the right, direct track distance, estimated time en route. Then the ESA on the left is actually your en route safe altitude. That's another lesser known one. And then we have our ETA of local time. So the big ticket items here are your departure time, right? That's got to be correct. And the ETA, so it tells you exactly what time you're going to get there. So if you're on a cross country or something and you're like, man, I really wonder how long it's going to take me to get from this point to this point, you could look at that information and you're able to see how long it's going to take. Also, if you press enter, that will just give you more information on the point. So if you wanted to change the point, you could manually enter in whatever you wanted, and then it would auto-populate that information in there. So you are not limited to what you put into the GPS. All right, next we're going on to density, altitude, the true airspeed, and winds. Fuel planning and trip planning, I think, are the most awesome ones and the most useful ones here, but there's good information on here too. Again, if you're filling out a diversion log and you need some information about your airspeed, it's in here and it's awesome. So we have, I will go back to that. So we have indicated altitude, calibrated airspeed. You have 29 or 9 or 2. And again, you can change this information if you want. On the left there, that's your total air temperature, heading, density, altitude, true airspeed, wind at, and whatever, and headwind. Okay. Again, the big ticket item here is your airspeeds. Then we have scheduler, so you can create timers. If you want to display reminder messages about switching tanks or changing oil or periodic messages, you can set that up in here. So if you've ever been in a plane and the fuel timer goes off, that is, if you want to customize that, you can. And it gives you options on how, what the name of the scheduler, you can customize it, you can name it. It's pretty cool. You can have fun with that. Going back to the auxiliary, and we are going to the second subchapter of the auxiliary. So here we have checklists. So some of this stuff, big ticket item, some of this stuff, smaller stuff, we'll go through everything. Checklist, if you want to create some checklists, you can do that, especially if you are flying, if you're not sharing a plane with a lot of people. Again, flight timers gives you more options there. Trip statistics, more fun things, but again, this is not super essential to your pilot training. Not that one. Okay, RAIM, this is bigger, so if you're in private, you don't need to know anything about this. If you're an instrument, you should know what this is or have been introduced to it. I won't go too much into that because this isn't an instrument lesson. This is just how to use a GPS. One thing that I do see here on RAIM for instrument people is when you are checking RAIM on the arrival time, in tiny, tiny, tiny little letters, it will either say UTC or LCL, so that's universal, or we have local time. Be very careful of which one it is on, depending on whoever set up your 430. It might, and especially if you have two nav sources, you could have one that says local and one that says UTC. So it's very small, very hard to see, but be conscious of that when you're doing checks and things like that, because that matters. Gives you sunrise and sunset time. Again, you can change the point. you can change the point. It's so great. That is fun. We're scrolling down. On the same second subchapter, we're just scrolling down because there's more. Software database, you manually started the GPS. This should have shown itself on the first screen. Third subchapter of auxiliary airspace alarms. So if you've ever been flying and a little message has came up and you click on the message and it says Class C airspace in however many miles, you can set airspace alarms. Somebody might have already done that for you. I think they're great. I'd have A, B, C, whatever. I'd have all of them on. But you can also set other airspace alarms too, which I think is fantastic. Again, don't completely. This is not. I wouldn't put money on this, but I think it is a definite good thing to have up if you want to have that up. You can also have alarms if you get too far away from your course. This is some smaller stuff. If you want to change the way that you're seeing things in measurement, you can change that here, and it will change the output of information, position, map. Okay, so this isn't, I would not worry about this. Date and time, and this is where you can get more specific with how you want to see the time oriented on your 430. Okay, on the last page of the AUX, so I just went into display. Now, I would call this a big ticket item. This is not something people know about, but you can manually change the contrast, so you can change the backlight of the GPS, and you can change this from auto to manual, and I will be messing around with this here. And you can change the display brightness of the screen. So backlight, I'm gonna change this knob all the way to the right. I'm moving the small knob. If I go left, it gets darker, right? The screen itself, the blue is getting darker. And if you go to the right, it's having more of a white appearance. And then we can go into contrast. So if you've ever thought, man, like my 430, I can, it's bright, but there's no distinction between the letters in the background, you can change the contrast. This is very cool. I love this. So the more to the right you go, the more gray it gets. The more left you go, the more defined the digital side gets, if that makes any sense. Display if you want it, which I totally would mess with this, especially if you're going up and it's really, really bright outside. Usually the 430, it's on auto, but sometimes auto doesn't cut it. Then after display, nearest airport criteria, I haven't done too much with that, but if you wanted to change the criteria of the nearest airport selection, we haven't gotten to the NRST Page yet. You could say, okay, I only want to see airports with a specific kind of runway surface or minimum length. It's not bad, just another little thing. That's with Com, I wouldn't mess with that. We are on the last chapter. If you are still with us, the best part is not over yet. There's still more fun things. Okay, so with the first subchapter, it's gonna give you the airports nearest to you. And then if you push the right knob in, right, and we're taking that big knob, and it's going to highlight different sections as you scroll down. If you keep scrolling down, it's going to give you more airports. I don't know exactly what the cutoff for this is. It might be different. Completely stick with a firm number here of it gives 50 nautical miles away, but I feel like I've seen up to 50, so I would do something like that. It might be numbered. I honestly can't remember, but use the big knob, go all the way left, all the way to the right to scroll up and down. Want more information about something is if you've highlighted, like for example, the airport, and you hit enter, because enter is a confirmation, it takes you to the Waypoint page, and think of this like a browser. What you're on is not really gone, but it's just like a little pop-up of extra information. You can hit done, enter, go back to the nearest airport page. There's more cool things we're going to do with this, but that's going to be towards the end. So now we are on the second subchapter of NRST, and we are looking at nearest intersections. So these are GPS Waypoint. This is pretty self-explanatory too. If you, for example, when I'm doing like holds and stuff with students, I go here and I just pick, okay, this one's 5 miles away. That's enough time to set up for a hold, and you know, it's not in any kind of like pertinent airspace. So I don't think about it too much of, I'm looking for it. I just go to nearest and I say this one's okay, and then we go there. Okay, so now we are on NDBs, and we are going to skip NDBs. They're still in the 430 if you want them. And now we are on the 4th page of nearest. This is something to remember. VORs, 4th page of the nearest, very, very important, especially for instrument students, and definitely private pilot too, with learning how to use VORs and where they are. So again, we're going to push that knob in, it's going to highlight, and then we use the big knob on the right to scroll to what we want to go to. If we hit enter, if we highlight a frequency and we hit enter, it is going to auto-populate in that left VLOC box, meaning that what I just highlighted here, 116.4, is now going to auto-populate in the bottom box for VLOC, meaning that it's on standby. This might be my favorite feature of the 430. You never have to manually enter another frequency again, unless, okay, I would say if you're with ATC and they say, okay, switch to this frequency, yeah, sure, you're manually entering that in. But as far as airports go and ATIS codes and VOR frequencies, anything that you can, that isn't going to be given to you, that you can get, you know, with ForeFlight or anything like that, you don't need it. Students will pull up ForeFlight trying to plug in the frequency for the VOR, and I'm like, you stop. You don't need it. Learn how to use a GPS. Then what that does is you don't need to put your head down. We're halfway, but anyways, you get what I'm saying. It's a very useful tool. We highlight what we want, we hit enter, auto populates, and then all we have to do is hit that left top down arrow, right? Because V for VLOC, we are going to nearest. On the 5th page of nearest, these are all user waypoints. So we could go direct to them. I could hit direct and we could go to that point if we wanted to go to that point. On the 6th page of nearest, we have Air Route Traffic Control Center frequencies. Air Route Traffic Control Center frequencies. This is a great frequency to use if you are trying to get some help going somewhere and you are out of options. There's a frequency that that could be given to you just using the GPS, and you can contact them and potentially hopefully get some help. Next, we have flight service station. So this is relevant to where you are. So this is the nearest flight service station, St. Pete, and it gives you the frequency. Another great thing to use if you don't have your sectional, or that's going to be too complicated to pull up, or ForeFlight's gone or whatever. On the last page of the nearest, that's nearest airspace, you would have something auto-populate here, and I don't have anything right now. So now that we've made it through some major features, we are not done. There are still a few more important things to talk about. So tuning and IDing a VOR, I'm just going to run through this real quick. You have your VOR frequency at the top there of VLOC, right? Have the one that you want to use in the top. Once you have that in, if you are wanting to use the VOR, you can go ahead and switch that over to VLOC. Will it ID not being on VLOC? Yes. But if you want to use a VOR, good idea just to switch it now. Switch that to VLOC. We are going to then hit NAV1, and then we are going to press ID. So NAV1 was on the top there, and that's NAV1 because this is our NAV1 source. If you have two NAVs, then you would, whatever NAV you're using, you would just want to use the right source for that. Then what I'm hitting with my thumb here is the ID. So you see how it says V on the knob? Well, hey, that's the volume for VLOC. And if you are looking at the one on top of it, that's C for comms, right? The volume for comms. So the volume for anything that you have active on VLOC, you turn it to the right, it gets louder. You turn it to the left, it gets softer. So if you're trying to tune an ID of VOR and you don't hear anything, you should check your volume before you completely give up. If you don't know anything about tuning and IDing a VOR and you want to know, the way that I explain this to people is when you hit the NAV button, it's like picking up the phone. It's like picking up a phone with a cord, right? If you remember what that sounds like, you pick up the phone and it just sounds like this static sound. That is like hitting nav 1. It's like picking up the phone, okay? When we hit ID, that's like actually making the call. So in order to call the VOR, you gotta pick up the phone, hit nav 1, and then you gotta hit ID. So the static sound followed by the beeping is kind of like the ringing. So that's one kind of fun way that I like to talk to people about that. If you want to change anything about the VLOC frequencies, you need to select. So we're pushing that knob in. Numbers on the left of the decimal, big knob. Numbers to the right of the decimal, small knob. And we are just demoing a page. So a common thing that you have to do is take me to this airport. To the right, go to the nearest page. We're going to select the page. So pushing on our mouse on the right is going to highlight the airport that we want to go to. And then we are going to press direct. Now, once we have done that, we need to hit enter, enter. This is the famous direct enter, enter. If you are manually entering something, not using the nearest page, if we're manually enter something, it's just direct enter because you're already on the direct page. If we are on the nearest page and we want to go somewhere, which I think is significantly easier than manually entering in every single letter of the thing that we want to go to, it's direct enter, enter, because you are hitting direct so the GPS knows, okay, we're talking about this airport. Then we are hitting enter because we are confirming that KPIE is the place that we want to go, and then activate's going to be highlighted, and that's the second enter. There's nothing to reconfirm when you are just using the direct function. And then you can get all the good information about that there, and that takes you to the first subchapter of the NAV. And you can mess around with that as you like. We are going to procedures now. So if you're an instrument, if you are in private, you can skip this part if you would like, but for anybody else, we are going to hit procedures, right? Now it lives in its own house. So we hit the procedure button. We would like to select an approach. So we are going to hit enter. We're going to confirm that selection with enter. Then we are going to scroll down to the approach that we want to do. Once we have highlighted what we want to do, we're going to hit enter. And then it's going to give you an option of how you want to commence the approach. How do you want to start it? If you're doing vectors, you go into the fix, whatever it is, we're going to hit enter. And then you have an option to load the approach or activate the approach. Loading it is getting it set up in the GPS. So one thing that I didn't actually do here, but let's say you are on a flight plan, right? And you are going from point to point to point. If you want to load the approach, that's going to enter it into your flight plan. I'll put an example up here. Don't activate it because now the GPS is assuming that you want to stop flying to where you're flying to and you want to shoot the approach. If you don't want to do that, don't do that. So you can just load it and then it gets entered into your flight plan. And then when you're on cross countries and stuff like that, you can be completely set up to where now if you want to go do anything, if they tell you to go direct to a fix, if they have you skip around, you have everything right there. So that's great. So for this example, we're just going to hit enter, and this is it doesn't really matter what approach I'm doing. Okay, so I set up, I want to go direct to an airport and then I want to do an approach, and I'm going to load it. Sure, why the heck not? We're doing the hold and activate. That just took me from what I had entered in the GPS to what I now have in the flight plan. If you are wondering how to delete something in your flight plan, if you don't know how to do that, you are going to hit the flight plan button, get on whatever your flight plan is, Once you're in this area, you're going to hit menu on the top right, and you're going to scroll down to delete flight plan, and then enter, and that'll delete everything in the flight plan. Now your flight plan is completely clear. If you want to delete something that you wanted to go direct to, well, we got to be on the direct page for that. Once you are on the direct page, which is its own thing, right? We hit that direct button, and then we hit menu. The only option here is to cancel the direct. I'm running out of words. And so what I'm doing now is showing you how to change the settings of how you want the map oriented. So you can go to the second page of the nav, hit menu, and then you can change the setup of the map. So we're hitting setup map, we're hitting enter, and then this is where you can change. I'm just doing running through a couple different examples here, how you want your nav, the second page of the nav, to be oriented in the position of the plane to where you want to go. You can also change the field. So if you don't like what is being offered to you on the right, you can change, you have so many different options of extra things that you want to see. So you don't have to live with what it gives you. You can actually change all of those boxes if you want it. It's whatever you want. So that was a lot. I know that was a lot. It was a lot for me. That was a lot to talk about, but I really hope this helps. I know it will. I actually know that this will help so much. It took me way too long to figure out how to do all of this, and I didn't really fully understand how to use the 430 until I started instructing, and I struggled for many hours in the plane in frustration on not understanding how to use the 430, because for me, there was no simulator. There's no simulator, so every time that I wanted to learn how to use the 430, not the 650, there's a touchscreen, there's a download for the 650, but I didn't have anything for the 430, so the only time that I got to mess around with that was in the plane, and learning how to use the GPS wasn't a high priority at the time, and that caused some major caused some internal pain there. But now we know how to use a GPS. I am not I wouldn't call myself an expert on the 430, but I'm pretty good. I know some things, and my some things should be able to help. So if you have more fun things with the GPS, I'm sure I maybe forgot a couple things, but this is a main overview of how to do most things and how to use a GPS and to help you with flight training. Okay, bye.